Senator Scarr.
Mr Acting Deputy President, as we approach Christmas, where many Queenslanders will enjoy Australian seafood on their Christmas day, I call upon all Australians to have some thought for the plight of our commercial fishers. There was an article in the Whitsunday Times this morning which talked about a meeting of fishers, commercial fishers in Mackay, and the article is entitled "Pleasure to Nightmare: Fishers Fear for Future Generation." And if I could read from the article to introduce my comments on this subject. A Proserpine commercial fisherman has warned his grandson against following in his family's footsteps because of Queensland's new fishing regulations brought into action by the Palaszczuk Trad government in Queensland. Keith Brennan joined dozens of angry fishers at a meeting in Mackay on Tuesday, attended by Queensland LNP Shadow Fisheries Minister Tony Perrott and the LNP's Whitsunday candidate Amanda Cam. Mr Brennan said that the Palaszczuk state government's fishing quotas could force him out of the industry. And I quote, "From the 14 years I've been in the industry, it went from a pleasure to a nightmare. I've been impacted that much that I could probably very well say tomorrow that I'm finished." Mr Brennan's son has also managed to make a livelihood as a commercial fisherman, but he believes that won't be the case for his 18-year-old grandson. He said, "We've advised him not to get into the fishing industry because what we can see now is it's definitely an industry that is going to crash." An industry that's going to crash. In my maiden speech in the Senate, I said that this country needs to make it easier, not harder. Easier, not harder for those who are creating wealth and generating jobs in our society. I believe that no sector of our economy, no occupation, no profession has been treated worse in my home state of Queensland than commercial fishers. It is an absolute disgrace the way that our commercial fishers in Queensland have been treated. Let me quote from Shane Ward, who's the chairman of the Gulf of Carpentaria Commercial Fishermen Association. This is what Mr Ward says. "The new fishing reform process is going to be the biggest change the Queensland fishing industry has ever had. It will see multi-generational fishing family businesses winding up production and closing down. Queensland fishers won't be able to supply markets with enough product due to a lack of quota. These markets will be lost permanently." And I've spoken to commercial fishers in this situation. I spoke to one commercial fisher who was running a very successful business out of a little town in the Gulf called Mapoon. He was the only private sector employer of Indigenous people in that township. He employed people from 2 Indigenous families, the only private sector employer. He was producing tonnes of fresh seafood consumed in this country. And his quota was cut from something like approximately 10 tonnes to 380 kilograms. 10 tonnes to 380 kilograms. His business was destroyed. He walked away. He had to walk away from that business. He still pays the annual fees of approximately $4,000 a year, but he had to walk away from that business, and those Indigenous people lost their jobs because of that. It is an absolute outrage, and it is imposing huge stress on our commercial fishers and their families. A report was released in January 2019 called the Sustainable Fishing Families Report, and it found that fishers who responded to the survey experienced significantly higher levels of high and very high psychological distress, greater than the Australian population as a whole. Why? The top sources of stress reported by respondents was related to uncertainty about future changes to government regulations on access to fishing, and red tape. Our commercial fishers in Queensland deserve better. They deserve better than the treatment they are receiving from Anastasia Palaszczuk and Jackie Trad. So bear some consideration for our Queensland commercial fishers when you sit down and enjoy some Australian seafood on Christmas Day.